Just as we're getting to the appointed hour, I want to welcome everybody. I noticed, by the way, Trevor Arnold's here. You usually have your sidekick with you as well, Adrian from the board. One of the thoughts that I'm impressed with, I was driving in and I'm reading all the media at 5:20, and it hit me when I was at the CAPB, and some of you were with us in Victoria. Boy, a lot of labor strife locally, and I understand it. And I heard a lot of it at the CAPB, except for Peel. And we're so blessed at the service and at the board. Great working relationship at all levels within the region as well. And you sort of take it for granted, but then read the popular media and all of it. I know we won't be getting mail delivery today. I understand that. Some of the school boards, I mean, I get it. And yet a blessing that we all work so well together. So that was my top of mind thought as I kill off a minute as we're getting ready to start our board meeting. So in starting our board meeting, let me first begin with our Indigenous acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather and on which Peel Region operates is within the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the traditional territory of the Shinabeg, Haudenosaunee, and Wendat nations. For thousands of years, Indigenous peoples have inhabited and cared for this land and continue to do so today. We are grateful to have this opportunity to work in this territory, and in doing so, respect the land's significance for all people in Peel. Particularly significant because it is Truth and Reconciliation Month. We put on a symposium here. I think I spoke on Tuesday at it. And of course, the last day of the month, the 30th, is National Day for Reconciliation. So very apropos today. With that, all of my colleagues are present. That is my roll call. Do I have any declarations of conflict of interest? Okay, so I'm going to kick off the first item that we have, which is our Peel Police Services Board Section 10 Ontario Provincial Police OPP Public Agenda. First item that we have, perhaps I'll welcome Inspector Natalie Major first. I've dealt with the roll call. Do I have any declarations of conflict? The approval of the last minutes says moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor? And that recommendation is that the minutes of the Ontario Provincial Police Section 10 Board meeting held on Friday, May 28, 2025 be adopted as read. That is carried. I'm going to turn it over to the inspector now. Any comments before we deal with new business item 2, the OPP 2025 second quarter operational statistical analysis report. Inspector Major, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and to our council members and guests. I appreciate being invited here today. I don't have a presentation other than providing our April to June 2025 statistical report for the OPP Detachment Board. I understand you have a very heavy agenda today, so next time I'll perhaps bring a presentation, and I keep it open to all. If there's a particular topic you would like for me to present, I would be more than happy to consider that.
Inspector, thank you. Over to my colleagues. Anybody, any questions, comments at this time? Seeing none. Al, if you could perhaps move the report, receipt. Mayor Brown will second that. All those in favor that the report be received, carried. And with that, I'll take a motion of adjournment from Vice Chair Coley and from Councillor Mahoney. All those in favor, carried. Thank you for being so respectful of our time today as well. Appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Okay. Thank you all.
So sorry, I know I was talking earlier. Am I to provide the statistics?
No, I think we're good.
Now?
We've received the report.
We're good?
I asked for any
Okay.
questions and we're
I just wanted to confirm
No,
that.
I really appreciate it.
If I could make one comment.
Please.
And it's actually just in what you were speaking about, the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I just wanted to provide a highlight that Caledon OPP will be involved in a few planned community events in our area. And this weekend, actually it began this week, but to my friends here with Peel Regional Police, back in 2005, your service created a running team raising awareness for the created the National Peace Officers Memorial Run, the Run to Remember. I was a member for 3 tours in my career, and that's currently ongoing. Earlier this week, hundreds of runners left the memorial here in Toronto, running to Ottawa for this weekend's the Canadian Police and Peace Officers service. We also have a Canadian Police Memorial Ride to Remember as well going on. And this is just to raise awareness and honor our heroes that gave the ultimate sacrifice in giving their lives to service in our community and to our country. And I will be there at Parliament Hill, and I understand I'll be seeing our chief there as well. So,
Yes.
thank you. I just wanted to make note.
And thank you very much for highlighting that.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
we
you.
stand adjourned as regards to the OPP section of our agenda. So I'll move right into our Peel Police Services Board public agenda for Friday, February 26th. And the first thing I will do, we've had our Indigenous acknowledgement. My roll call, as before, is we are all in attendance. Do I have any declarations of conflict of interest on this agenda? Seeing none from my colleagues, Chief, over to you for any updates you might have.
Thank you, Chair. We'll obviously move through them knowing that we have some presentations. I do want to acknowledge Inspector Major's comments. That would be where President Woolley is now. He's making part of the trek and the run up to Ottawa, and many of us from the PRPA and the police service will be there. We anticipate maybe 200 to 300 of our Peel members on Parliament Hill. I do want to acknowledge that and thank the board for their continued assistance and advocacy at the federal level. I know we just had the announcement. If the board will recall, earlier this year, it was at the board's request that we attend the U.S. Embassy for the purposes of direct bilateral engagement. And we're very appreciative of the time, Chair Yanika, for you, Mr. Serpe, Mayor Brown. I know you're instrumental in the idea as well, getting there. Last week, we were able to commit to a conversation with the U.S. State Department, specifically Homeland Security. And as a result of that, I know Deputy Milinovich has some opportunities for us to continue our partnership with them. That might be inclusive of embedding an officer. We already have one officer in a joint partnership in Buffalo at the border, but we'll be considering one maybe in Toronto at their Homeland Security office, which is a direct conversation of us enhancing information sharing right with Peel. The whole idea of us being a border point, the airport, the logistics. As a result, we've got some information sharing possibilities that will enhance our commitment there. Subsequent to that, we did have an opportunity to meet with Public Safety Canada and officials from the federal government, including the minister, to discuss, again, our continued encouragement for enhancements to things that we've advocated and lobbied for, including bail reform, new offenses, but also the technological side to assist on our investigations. Bill C2 proposes some opportunities, and we're hopeful that the fall bill will include our advocacy pieces, and we've happy to say that continues on behalf of Peel Regional Police, and it's us directly doing that. So thank you again for being alongside of us and the encouragement. I do want to say Mr. Carby was with us this week to highlight our acknowledgement of truth and reconciliation, because obviously there's a reason we're wearing the orange epaulettes, but we have had the opportunity to continue to encourage our organization to be considerate of our requirements under the Truth and Reconciliation Commission from 2015. So there's multiple recommendations that we continue to see through. With that, I think it's obviously would be appropriate to acknowledge that this Tuesday, the board partnered with us on our Victim Symposium. I know that you probably would like to speak to that too, but maybe Nick would just comment in sort of in chief before I hand it over to the deputies.
It's going to turn red, and you have to push. There you go.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief, and through the chair. Yeah, we are incredibly proud to announce or to share the details of really a first of its kind Victim Survivor Symposium. The Chief had mentioned that I think collectively we've identified some issues in our current system that we had previously identified as being opportunities to make it better for survivors. But the one thing that was missing from that and is often missing from the conversation is the perspective of the people who've actually experienced these things. So we had over 300 attendees at this. It was comprised of chiefs from other police services, elected officials, and I would argue probably most importantly, a variety of survivors who have experienced things like intimate partner violence, human trafficking, homicides, carjackings. And we listened to them directly. And during those conversations, it became very clear to us that there were the recommendations that came out of that dialogue were very succinctly, we need to do more in the space of bail reform, justice reform, and then those two things will help us be better positioned to do what we really exist for, which is better look after our survivors. And so the third point that that we collectively came towards an idea that needs to be advocated for is resourcing for the services that are provided for our survivors. And I just want to thank the board because it was an incredibly compelling day where we heard very directly from the people who were affected by these offenses. And it was a good day, which I'm confident is going to result in the momentum that we need in order to continue to advance these conversations.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to hand it over to an update to Deputy DePatt and then Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. Good morning, board members. In keeping with my commitment to update the board and our community on the efforts of Project 300, I'm really happy to say that over the summer months, there have been various outreach initiatives where the project team has been out into the community. We're working with traditional partners in our recruitment efforts, but we've also done some new things as well. We've partnered with the Ontario University Sports Associations, with Trillium Health Partners and William Osler. I'm sorry to say to so many people that there's security officers and those that are involved in loss prevention and asset protection are looking to Peel Regional Police as a career, and we've hired so many of them. And we've also been present at the Canadian International Air Show, just to highlight the fact that we're doing everything that we can on the ground to hire the very best out there, on top of a very robust media platform outreach initiative that, as the board knows, we launched a while ago, because we really are in an environment where our policing partners across the province are recruiting very aggressively to enhance their services to meet their needs, and we really want to make sure that we hire the very best of the best. So with that, just last month, in the 50-year history of Peel Regional Police, for the first time, we presented badges to the largest class ever, which was 79 recruit constables that have now deployed to both Mississauga and Brampton. Regrettably, that record is already broken, because in 2 weeks we will be sending 88 recruit constables to the police college, and we're going to wish all of our folks luck there. We're well on pace to hire our 300 officers. In fact, it's projected that by November the 13th, we will hire our 300th officer for the year. So I just want to congratulate the team that's been involved, and everyone, including the board, who've supported this initiative through various means.
Thank you, Chief. Through the chair, I'd like to update the board on a recent project conducted by 21 Division, Project Undeliverable. As a result of some excellent investigative work by frontline officers in 21 Division, investigators were able to link 441 mailbox thefts in Brampton and Mississauga, along with an additional 210 in Halton region. A joint forces operation with Halton Police and Canada Post was initiated in the early part of the summer, and identified an organized group that was operating across the GTA. Early this month, the investigation resulted in the execution of multiple search warrants. These warrants led to the recovery of several hundred pieces of mail, including 225 stolen checks, valued at between $410,000 and $450,000. The arrest of 4 males who are now facing a total of 416 charges. We've disrupted an organized group that has been active across the GTA, victimizing our communities and taking them off the board. Excellent work by 21 Division investigators. We know this group, we haven't been able to charge them, but we know this group is responsible for hundreds more mail thefts across the GTA and up into Barrie and York region.
Okay, before I turn over to the board, Chief, I did want to top up your comments about our visit to Ottawa. And I must say, hectic time for me, but I didn't want to miss that opportunity. But we'd sort of been presented with our first grandchild 36 hours earlier, and 48 hours later, I would be hosting my son's wedding along with all of it. But I said, I just got to get there because I saw the significance. Boy, was I'm glad I did, because I must tell you, we were welcomed so graciously, so cordially, and so sincerely by the American Embassy and by Homeland Security. And I want to speak to the sincerity part. They were very, very sincere in our visit and what they hoped to. It wasn't just perfunctory, you're here, let's have a coffee, take a picture, and we're out of there in 15 minutes. It lasted almost all of 2 hours. And Chief, I want to really commend you and the team because, and how can you forget a name like Johnny Walker, our guy on the inside that did all the Sherpa work to get, it was remarkable. One of our folks that works in the embassy as well. You can explain the linkage better than I. But all of the points that we made, and what I want to say to the Chief and our team, one of the main points we wanted to present to them is we are not seen as a conventional border town because we're not on the border. And yet the Chief and the team were explaining we're probably more significant than any other border town because of the international airport, all the cargo that goes through, and then the $2.2 billion of truck traffic that goes through Peel every day. Well, they were aware, they became far more aware, and Chief, they and your team, I think I wanted you to speak, they could not have been more welcoming and great, and this means we should have more linkage, when's our next meeting, etc. And that's why I use the word sincerity, because I don't know that I've ever achieved more in an hour and 45 minutes, and they were on side with us and welcoming of us and saying we've got to do more together. Problems with, smuggling individuals into the country and abusing and taking advantage of new Canadians coming in through the airport and things like that. Just topic after topic. And again, the sincerity, we can all work together and do more. So Chief, a last word to you, because I do want you to commend the team and the people that set it up. And I will say to my executive director, and you're going to help me pen a letter to them on behalf of the board. This is why I wanted to present today, just to thank them along the lines in which I've just spoken. So Chief, to you, a last thought on that.
Thank you, Chair. I think it all represents an opportunity for us to be seen differently and advocate for our local needs, which distinguish us from everywhere else in this country. And it has a direct correlation to, our meetings earlier, whether we're talking about budget or where this organization is going. So I do want to acknowledge that Deputy Milinovich and Superintendent Kalavecchia and the team from Investigative Emergency Services have produced a briefing note which could help inform your letter, yes, Chair. Mr. Serpe, I'll be happy to share that with you and contribute to an ongoing relationship.
Thank you to all. So on to my next item now, board member questions and announcement. Vice Chair Coley.
Thank you. So first of all, welcome back, everybody. And I know it's our first board meeting, almost 3 months in, so there's a few things I just wanted to recognize and do shout outs to. I think one of them already Deputy DePat started off with, so thank you. But I really wanted to acknowledge the recruitment teams. We have, I can't even say the best of the best. So not only are they breaking records and getting us to the 300, it is the same teams. I attended so many festivals this past summer. It is the same team that was in the community. They're present, they're talking to the community, talking about the future with Peel Police. It's basically overtime, overdrive. They're working in such a great way. And so a big thank you to them. And I did want to actually mention a few names because I know how much went into that. So thank you, Deputy DePat. But I also wanted to shout out to Acting Staff Sergeant Leon Stewart, Acting Detective Holly Faulkner, Constable Danny Martini, Constable Justin Mara, Constable Curtis Dharamraj, Constable Richard Chin, Constable Rayanne Rice, and of course, all under the leadership of Inspector Elaine Fowler. Fabulous job. I only heard from so many community organizations just wanted to have Peel Police at their festivals between Mississauga and Brampton. So that's such a great thing for us as well. So just a big recognition and thank you to your teams and all the work that they're putting in. I also wanted to do a big shout out to the Yippee program, one of my most favorite things in the summer to attend. And I know we have a presentation today, so I'm not going to take away their thunder, but just again, what a fabulous job you did and watching their faces and as they go through that journey. So thank you. I know how much hand-holding and care goes into that. And it's so fabulous to see them come through that. So thank you to them, and I look forward to that presentation. And well, and the other teams were not busy. So we have a lot of announcements that happened this past summer. And I know our teams continue to do the hard work, but just a few key announcements that actually press conferences that we happened this past summer. So I just wanted to acknowledge Project Outsource, Project Pelican, Ghost, and Night Train. And I just thought if Deputy Milenovich, you wanted to add anything to that, or the chief as well. Oh, the red.
Please, you're good, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, Vice Chair, and through the chair. I don't want to break it. Definitely appreciate the reminder of how busy a summer it has been, and I would like to take the opportunity to thank our people. You know, they definitely haven't taken their foot off the gas. As you mentioned, Ghost and Night Train, those were two projects that were oriented towards separate groups that were committing home invasions, not just here in Peel, but across the GTA. And that project alone was responsible for over 300 charges and almost 30 people arrested. So really, really happy with that and our fight against home invasions for auto theft. Project Outsource. Project Outsource was an extortion investigation from our extortion task force that also included some tow violence, resulted in the recovery, or I should say seizure, of over $4 million worth of stolen property that was taken as a part of that investigation. So we're really proud of that. And then in keeping with some of the discussions we had and probably some of the reasons why it's so important that we build those relationships with our American partners, Project Pelican was our largest drug seizure ever. Almost 500 kilograms of cocaine that was destined for distribution in the GTA. So we're really, really proud of that, worked with our partners in the US as well as across the GTA. And it's a great demonstration of the importance and value of those partnerships, but also some of the conversation pieces, which is Peel is a global access point. And it's, you know, as attractive to our residents, it's equally as attractive to transnational organized crime. So we have to keep our foot on the gas.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, we have a new system in here, so thank you so much. And just a recognition, Deputy Andrews, to also the teams who all the divisions held summer community barbecues. It was beautiful, and I also had a chance to visit Division 11 and 12, so thank you so much to Superintendent Josh Coley and Superintendent Joy Edwards. The enormity of what they covered, their divisions, it was just unreal, and they do a fabulous job, including the celebration square, and so many of the community events also fall under them. So thank you to that. And finally, I just wanted to recognize that it's Gender Equality Month, so September 21st to 27th. So just wanted to put that out there as well. And finally, thank you to, I think from all of us, the Victims and Survivors Symposium was it was beyond moving. And I know the amount of care and detail that went into making sure the individuals that chose to share their stories. I actually met a few who were in the audience who were not ready to even share their story. So that tells you the effect. So a big shout out to, of course, our fabulous event planning team at PRP, because I know the amount of work that went into it, Chief Nish and Deputy Milenovich. But I also want a big recognition on behalf of the board to Robert Serpe, our Executive Director, Angela, and Shivani, because I know how many hours you guys put in. So thank you for that. That's it for me.
Thank you. Before I go to Al, on that very symposium, boy, Chief, wasn't it wonderful? One of the chiefs went out of his way to say, here we are again after you hosted the Auto Theft Symposium. You're here commending us, another chief, for being at the vanguard. And that's because of you and Rob and your thoughts in this team. And it's how we like to be thought of. So thank you very much for bringing it up. Carrying on with the comments from members, Mr. Boughton.
There. Thank you, and through you, Chair. Deputy Milenovich, the Victims and Survivors Symposium was outstanding. And from the simplest things, the way that the Police Services Board, Regional Police, and the other 4 services are in, all equally represented up there on the screen. So it was very classy, the way it was done. I don't know who came up with that. It was probably Rob. It was really well done. I can tell you that I would pay for the bus to load in the panel from the morning and take them all to Ottawa if we could get them to sit down in front of the Prime Minister and the other members of the cabinet that can truly make a difference. just read on the surface what they've gone through. If you take the Hendersons, where they lost their granddaughter to a gangbanger who was out on the third time for handgun offenses and all that. It's not just the event, it's what they're going through after the event, and what will they be by the time it goes to trial, 6 years, 5 years before it gets trial. If the Prime Minister and others in Ottawa could hear that, I think they would really want to start changing and doing the bail reform and making the changes to the justice system that we deserve, particularly as it relates to PRP arresting, justice system release, PRP arrest, same person, release, and goes on, and to see the challenges many of those people at the symposium had in their life after the event, not just at the event, to have a loss of life. And I'm serious, I'd pay the bus to get them to Ottawa, so it was outstanding. So thank you very much for that. And to Deputy Chief DePatt, on your recruiting, I did my first march past at the OPC a week ago. And to say that was moving is to understate it. We had 61, and that march passed, and I was there representing the Ontario Association of Police Service Boards, but also Peel. Very, very moving. What a class, and great to see that. And then we'll have the next intake of 88. You know, I'll be there for that. I also attended the air show that they had at the Brampton Flying Club, and PRP had the tent and the folks there. I got to tell you, I was really, really moved by the South Asian woman that you had in that recruiting tent. Was she bright and wide-eyed, talking to everybody. We had a nice chat about the challenges of recruiting from within her community and why she chose that path, resistance within her family unit, and yet now they see the value of her being a member of PRP. That's the type of person you want to have out all the time. And can you tell me the name of that? Sorry. Hang on, Chair, can you? There it is.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden. I believe you're talking about Constable Saini.
Yeah, and she ever great. Those people will those officers will make a huge difference in the recruiting going forward. And our 30-30 initiative, let's not lose sight of that, that we said 30% by 2030. I think this graduating class, we have a 61. We only have 6 women. I think that's the number, 6 or 7 of that class. We need to do a little better on that. That's the type of person recruiting I think can have an incredibly positive effect on the recruiting that you do and that your team do to get to that 30-30 as well. So well done.
Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair. You're absolutely right. We had a very, very busy summer, not just to mention the projects which happened within the service, but also the community engagements. And all of those events that I've been able to attend just underscores the tremendous effort by our service to connect with our community and community partners. And so a couple that I wanted to just mention for record here is our Beyond the Blue. And that's a community organization that's just really focused on supports for first responders, especially those in policing. It was quite moving to hear the impact of the job on these men and women who see such horrific things on the job, and the mental health supports which are required to make sure that they can remain healthy in doing their work. So I just wanted to say a thank you to the organizers of Beyond the Blue and their supports for our service members. Our First Responders Barbecue, which happens also on September 20th. That's a group of faith-based leaders who come together just to, again, show appreciation for first responders. So at all our divisions, this past Saturday, there were barbecues to celebrate and to say thank you to our service members. And that's led by the First Responders Barbecue team under the leadership of Brian Prill, who's a community member who has been doing this for many years. And this has actually gone beyond just Peel, but also at divisions in Toronto, where I also had an opportunity to participate. So just wanted to acknowledge the supports from community groups like his. And also to finally touch base on something that has already been mentioned, and that's our Victims and Survivors Symposium. It's great that, you know, an opportunity was created for survivors to actually share their story. Often we see crime only through the lens of catching the bad guys and dealing with solving crime. But often the impact it has had on victims and survivors is not spoken of enough in our justice system conversations. And so it was great that we took the opportunity to highlight that. But having done so, there were some significant recommendations that came out of that, specifically from our survivors. And I think, Chief, you alluded to that earlier. And I would love to see our board take a position to help support those recommendations at the different tables. Because one of the things that was pretty much striking to me was that many of the people who can help address these recommendations were not in the room. And so if we can lend our voice to help articulating some of these recommendations at other tables so that these survivors can feel heard, not just in the moment, but beyond that moment in you know, supporting those recommendations, I think the board may be helpful in drafting maybe a letter to some of our partners to talk about those recommendations and others that can address the condition of victims and survivors going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. One last thing with regard, I'm so glad you mentioned it, with regards to that symposium on victims. Two things, and I think they bear emphasizing. I want to single out Mayor Brown for all you've done on this file as well. But I apologize. I guess I should be smarter. When I envisioned the revolving door of bail, if I can use the analogy, imagine a revolving door. So I thought it was much more, it's a revolving door. Here comes the first individual, you know, losing being a purpose. And you moved him on and put him on bail. Then you brought in the next one. Then I came to learn that, no, Nando, it's often the same person. And I'd never countenanced for that. I thought it was much more, they just let every individual one after. Somebody needs to explain to me the thought process where an individual's before, okay, we'll give them benefit of the doubt, put them on bail. Then while they're on bail, they commit a crime, you come back before the system, and they put you out on bail again. That is perverse. That is bizarre. Where does that happen in the normal world under any circumstance? I know you gave me a mortgage. I defaulted. Give me another mortgage. It doesn't happen. I know I got a credit card. I haven't paid it. We'll give you. It doesn't happen. I was flabbergasted that that is as prevalent as each individual going through. It's the same person. How many? Great American black poet, Maya Angelou, I'll leave it at this. One of the greatest lines that's impressed me all my life. When somebody shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. What a great line. That's this. So you can see the second thing, and I think it bears and you say it euphemistically, I've come to learn that it was true. The victims that said, there is no question this system is designed to support the perpetrator. Designed. With the resources that they give them. And if you're the poor victim and you have to pay for your own defense, if you need psychological support, it's all on you. That lovely 6 years waiting for, well, we don't want to impose on the and he's changed his lawyer. And are you kidding me? So I always heard that euphemistically. I came to learn, no, it's actually true. The system is built along supporting the perpetrator and is oblivious to the victim. That was the other great message that came out. I knew it to a degree. It was so tangible. So final point, the courage of those people that got on stage and told their stories. Oh my God, well done all around. Len, a further thought at your end?
Absolutely, great. Thank you to our operators back there. Yes, it slipped my mind to mention our committee consultations. As chair of our Governance and Human Rights Committee, we had the first iteration of that, the consultations, just 2 nights ago. I want to thank our committee members for participating. I think the level of engagement was higher this year than we had last. We had deputations from community members, and we had quite a number of individuals watch online, which was actually great to see. In fact, the numbers I heard were higher than what we typically see for a regular board meeting. So I guess we did a good job in trying to get the word out on that. And of course, it was recorded, so for future participation by community members. And we have 2 more sessions coming up, so I encourage our community members to lean into that and let their voice be heard on this question of AI and policing as we do 2 more consultations, one in October, one in November. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I promise that's my only rant for the day. Moving on to the business of the day. First up, item 1, minutes of the board meeting held Friday, June 27. Recommendation that the minutes of the board meeting held on that day be adopted as moved by Councillor Mahoney, seconded by Omar. All those in favor? That is carried. Deputations, none. Our first presentation, item 3, Youth in Policing Initiative, which we affectionately refer to as YIPI, Empowering the Future of Peel, Celebrating Growth, Leadership, and Community Impact. Presentation to be provided by Community Engagement Sergeant Andrew Wernert and former YIPI student Sarah Chen. Chief, any comments if you would like to introduce this? Over to Deputy DePatt, please.
Thank you, Chief, and through you, Chair. For those that may not be familiar, the Peel Regional Police has a dedicated youth engagement section within community safety and well-being. One of the key programs that they oversee is the Youth in Policing Initiative program, which is commonly referred to as the YIPI program. This is a Ministry of Children, Community and Social Services funded program and also supported by the Police Services Board. And it was first launched in 2009, starting with just 10 students. The program has grown significantly since then. In 2023, we expanded the program, realizing that not only was this Youth in Policing Initiative program an employment pathway for youth that exposed to them what the role of policing is in society, along with what the role of the civilian professionals that support the police do as a function, we wanted to create an educational pathway as well. So we partnered with Sheridan College, and it's become a fantastic program. This past summer, 35 YIPI students graduated from the program. This morning, you're going to hear from Sergeant Andrew Wernert, who leads our youth engagement team. He'll walk you through the purpose behind the YIPI program and some of the key milestones and the impact that it's had. But I'm also very pleased to welcome Ms. Sarah Chen, who was identified as a standout member of the YIPI class of 2024, and she was so good that she was invited back this past summer to become a YIPI program team leader. So with that, over to our presenters.
Through you, Chair. Good morning. Thank you to everybody for the opportunity to showcase one of Peel Regional Police's most powerful youth engagement success stories, the Youth in Policing Initiative, and like the Deputy mentioned, it's more commonly or more affectionately known as YIPI. I oversee the YIPI program, and I can tell you that YIPI is not just a summer job. It is a launchpad designed, for youth ages between the ages of 15 and 18, from diverse and often underrepresented backgrounds from across the region in both Mississauga and Brampton. Since 2009, we have actually provided summer employment for youth, but more importantly, we offer mentorship, exposure to post-secondary education through Sheridan College, and the chance to explore careers in policing and public service. So if I may draw your attention to the chart on the screen, if you take a look at 2022 onward, the YIPI program has absolutely exploded in terms of applications. From just 74 applicants in 2022 to 1,180 in 2025. That's an incredible 1,494% increase in just 3 years. It really is a testament to how deeply this program is resonating with the youth in our community and how hungry they are for connection, growth, and opportunity. This is the 2025 YIPI class. It saw 35 unique and inspiring young individuals selected from 1,180 applicants. Not only did those youth show promise and a hunger to succeed, but they accurately represented the incredible diversity that is the region of Peel. Youth from all different walks of life came together for 2 months to be part of an incredible journey and to see and experience things that few, if any, ever see. So on to our highlights. Each summer, our students step into experiences most teenagers will never imagine. From hands-on learning with our tactical and canine units, to engaging with detectives from homicide, frauds, and special victim units, to community days with seniors and outreach programs. And thanks to our incredible partnerships with Sheridan College, Youth are also getting exposure to post-secondary education and college-level courses and certifications, including a recognized private security course. So just some of our photos. The middle one, you actually see one of the actual forensics classrooms in Sheridan College, right? So that's where the students actually participate in the forensics course. And some more photos, food bank on the left. We've got a senior center on the right. So just some of the community outreach that the students are participating in. What makes Yippee absolutely so unique is the human connection it makes. It breaks down barriers between youth and police. And in reality, when a 16-year-old hears the life advice from an officer that actually grew up in the neighborhood, something clicks. Trust builds and possibilities grow. And the ripple effect continues for both youth and officers alike. Now on to the good stuff. Since 2009, we've actually maintained a 100% program completion rate, and that's not a statistic that you see very often. This year, we took steps to properly evaluate the program by creating and administering an internal survey for program participants, as well as contracting a third-party company to complete a fulsome review of the program. This included interviews with youth, officers, instructors, and parents. Admittedly, at the time when I was preparing this presentation, I didn't have all of the results from the evaluations. But since then, we have received some incredible feedback, which I can share with you today. From our youth, 95% reported being satisfied with their overall Yippee experience. 100% of survey participants found our program coordinators engaging, with many praising officers for the kindness and willingness and inclusivity to share their own personal stories. 70% said that Yippee actually prepared them for both the positive and negative realities of policing, and 60% reported a more positive view of police after the program. From our instructors at Sheridan, 75% shared that Yippee significantly builds leadership, confidence, and teamwork as a program. And then from the Yippee parents, 75% shared that the program improved teamwork, responsibility, and time management for their children. 80% responded saying that their child was more mature and confident as a result of the program, with one parent even saying, and I quote, "My child came home more confident, disciplined, and motivated for their future. Yippee opened doors we never imagined." And that feedback shows precisely why the Yippee program has been so successful in the past years and why it creates the impact it does with the youth within our region. And now it's my pleasure to introduce someone who embodies the spirit of Yippee, a graduate who returned this summer, as the deputy mentioned, as a volunteer team leader. I welcome Sarah Chen, who will share a few words with you about her Yippee journey.
Hi, good morning. I want to first thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to be speaking here today. So my name's Sarah. I'm starting my undergrad at the University of Waterloo this fall, majoring in psychology, and I had the amazing privilege of participating in the Youth in Policing Initiative program in the summer of 2024, and being able to come back this summer to be a mentor for this year's graduating class. So I first applied for this program because my mom heard about it through a community group chat. At the time, I was just looking for work experience, and honestly, I didn't even think I would get accepted into the program because I was aware of how competitive it would have been. But she still pushed me and encouraged me to apply and just give it a try. And I'm very grateful that she did, because without that push, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to take part in this fulfilling program and be here today. So through Yippee, I gained so much more than I could have ever expected. Over the past 2 summers, I've discovered how capable I can be when I step out of my comfort zone, and that has boosted my confidence tremendously, as well as my discipline through different activities we've done throughout the program. The program also helped me learn more about myself, especially my passion for public service, as we've had countless opportunities to work for community service organizations such as SEVA, Regen. And this summer, we got to also go to the Christian Holland Senior Home and spend a whole day with the seniors there, and as well as host a little carnival afternoon with the seniors and play games with them. Seeing firsthand how hard Peel regional officers and civilian staff work to keep our community safe confirmed for me that this is a career that I want to pursue. Along the way, Yippee gave me the chance to develop valuable skills like collaboration, teamwork, leadership, and even public speaking through workshops designed just for us. And that has helped a lot, both in school and in real life. I've discovered that I feel a lot braver now speaking, especially publicly. Most importantly, Yippee shaped my future direction. Before this program, I wasn't sure what career I wanted, and I was worried that I would end up in a field that I wasn't extremely passionate or something that I enjoyed doing. Now I feel confident pursuing a career as a first responder. Returning this summer made that goal even stronger, especially as I stepped into more of a mentorship role. I wanted to support the new Yippee students, give them the same memorable experience I had, and show them how valuable this program truly is for the youth in our community. I'm very thankful to have been part of Yippee, and I look forward to building on the foundation it has given me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. In 2025, we were very excited to welcome 35 young people, plus 10 new volunteer team leaders into another life-changing summer. With the continued support of our partners and community, Yippee will continue to grow, keep inspiring, and will help to build a safer, stronger Peel region and all together. And I just wanted to say thank you to the board. This is our graduating class. And just some of our photos from the graduation. Quite the event. But at this point in time, I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and I welcome any questions that you may have with respect to the Yippee program.
Thank you, and there are excellent presentation. Thank you, Sarah. Over to Vice Chair Coley.
Yes, thank you. First of all, that was beautiful. And Sarah, congratulations. It's great to see that you came back. And I think mentoring is such a great opportunity because those kids get to learn from you, from your past experience. Again, like I said earlier in my opening remarks, I think this is one of the most phenomenal programs, and watching those kids, I think it's my third year I've attended it now, and just watching those kids enter at the start. I'm very sorry I missed the graduation thanks to the strike. I was stuck somewhere else. But I flew back the next day, but I heard only great things, and thank you for that. I commend the team that spends all those hours, like shooting that number for the submissions. Oh my God, that is phenomenal. Because one, it says that our teams are also doing a great job of getting out in the community and talking about the program. You heard it from a WhatsApp group, so it's getting out to everyone, and I think that's the goal. I know, Chief, you've always said it, that we want to be able to create this safe space that kids come in and learn. Interestingly, I did run into one Yippee student this summer as well. I was at the Canada Day in Malton, and a student came up and just happened to say I was part of it the year before. And, you know, one of the big things they said is, I didn't know what career I wanted. After I went through the program, it made me figure out the career I wanted to go into. So it wasn't policing, but it was a different career. I was actually forensics. Well, I guess technically policing was forensic sciences. But what it did was they said the kindness. I think you said it as well in the remarks. That was the one word I keep hearing from students, the kindness from the individuals who work with the students and the way they spend attention and time and mentoring. I think this particular student said they were going through something as well at the time, and they were able to recognize it and be able to talk them through it. So just wanted to say, keep doing the phenomenal work. I can't even believe the numbers were at. I have no clue how you decide on who the 35 are. I can't even imagine that decision. But what I say is the 35 that get through, wow, right? Think about the amount of things that they've already done to get to that place. So congratulations and thank you for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boughton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, Sarah, and Sergeant Warren. It's I'm always moved by Yippee. I haven't missed any of the graduations in 7 years, have I, Rob? So I've been to them all. I think they're They're fantastic. If I had my way, we'd bring a couple hundred in and do it if the money was available. I think it's incredibly well spent. At one of the graduations for the officers that were coming onto the force, the Solicitor General and I try to meet with the graduates before we do the swearing in. And the first question that he asked was, how many of you people came through the YIPI program? So he gets it. He gets it. He knows the value of it. So I think it's a fabulous program, and I love being there. Mr. Carby and Ms. Coley don't realize that I'm going to volunteer their time right now, but I'm sure they're going to nod. One of the things that I think that we could do with these students, and this is just a suggestion, is have some board members. I'll step up, and so will Mr. Carby and Ms. Coley, to have one day outside of what you do to talk to them about real life and things. One of the things I noticed this year more than past years is kids don't even know how to shake a hand properly. They don't look you in the eye. Some very, very simple life skills that I think would be very useful, and we're happy in this board to come and support you on that. Just little things for those of us who have come through the business arena in order to help kids, because that's what happens in the real world. When you're going on a job interview, whether you're trying to be a police officer or something out there, the first thing that people do, you only have one chance to make a first impression. I think some of us on the board could be helpful to you and step up and do that, and as simple as how to shake hands and look somebody in the eye and how to engage in a conversation. So I would be happy to do that at any time, and congratulations, Sarah, well done today, and so happy that you were 24 and back at 25. I can speak for the whole board. We love this program. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carby.
In the interest of time, I'll keep my comments very short, but congratulations and thank you for the report, Sergeant Warner and Sarah, for coming. I wouldn't let the opportunity pass, though, Sarah, since you're sitting before the board, and I hope I'm not putting you off, Good. You're confident now based on what you learned at YIPI. There is a narrative often in community around, engagement with police and youth. Now that you're here, is there anything you would say to your peers about seeking out those opportunities? Because like you mentioned, you didn't think about this until your mom kind of came across it and kind of twisted your arm a little bit but then you got there and you were pleasantly surprised based on your testimony. So is there anything you would say to your friends around what it means to engage as a young person with policing?
I personally never had any bad views about police officers, and I think the one thing I can say is that this program really has changed my life. It's shaped me into who I am today, and I don't think I've made such developmental progress over the past year because of this program. And I think one thing I'd like to say to my peers and friends would be that if they have any opportunities to take part or just engage with officers, I think they shouldn't be too intimidated and just step forward and, have a conversation with officers, talk with them. For me, I was a little intimidated by officers at first because the uniform, it holds like authoritative power, and I just get nervous too. But after the program, it really showed me that the humans behind the badges, the hearts behind those badges, and that at the end of the day, everyone is human, just like me, just like you. And I've actually talked to this about my friends at school that, officers are really cool and they're really nice too. And they try their best to understand you, and they wouldn't ever shy away from a chance to have a conversation, especially with youth. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just top that up by saying, Sergeant Werner, to you and the whole team, what a marvelous program. Loosely speaking, in a manner of speaking, the gentleman to my right, the finest police chief in the country, kind of came through a similar process where showed up at Halton's. I'm just a young kid and the rest is history, in a manner of speaking. Sarah, I'm going to tell you something else because you confided. You've just met me. Sarah, you said nervous about public speaking. For the first half of my career, I was terrified of public speaking. Nobody believes me when I say that. You mean when you were a young kid? No, 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 no. Councillor Mahoney's nodding because for many years his lovely mother sat next to me at council and would ease me and Nana, relax, it's going to be fine. Nobody believes me when I say that, but I was given the opportunity, and step by step you get a little bit better at it, you acquire some self-confidence, and so I was taken that this gave you the opportunity to do that because it helped me immensely, as did Councillor Mahoney's mom. So that's one. Number two, you said you had an interest at some point that your career might take you into first responders. It's a classic interview question, so I'm going to give it to you. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I see myself working with Peel Regional Police.
We'll leave it at that. I'm just going to mention to you, some of us around the table know people that know people. So when the time comes, you might want to pass on your resume and we'll see where that goes. Marvelous presentation. Well done to all. I'm going to ask Mr. Boughton and Mr. Carby to move receipt of the presentation. All those in favor, that is carried. Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you very much, Sergeant, for this. Okay, that takes us on to new business under our consent motion. Items 4 to 7 will be approved by one motion. The following reports are considered routine or have been considered and discussed by committees of the Peel Police Services Board and have been forwarded to the board for information. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member, at which point items will be removed from the consent agenda motion and considered in its normal sequence on the agenda. The individual items that will be dealt with as such are number 4, the semi-annual procurement activity report. Item 5, the Microsoft direct negotiation authorization. Item 6, the Apple agreement extension and budget increase. And item 7, supply and delivery of vehicles for Ford of Canada's fleet, direct negotiation with Dixie Ford Sales. Do any members wish any of these items held for further discussion? Seeing none, I guess I'm going to take a motion to deal with the consent agenda items as moved by Mr. Boughton, seconded by Mr. Mahoney. Councillor, all those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. So that takes me to other new business. First up, item 8, the Human Rights Report and 2024 Use of Force Report, dated September 10 by Deputy Chief O'Doherty, Strategy and Innovation Technology Command, providing the board with the 2024 Human Rights and Use of Force statistics. Chief, over to you if you want to introduce it, or right over to Deputy O'Doherty.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. First and foremost, as we continue to modernize our police service, one of the elements required to do so is understanding why we do things, understanding the data, analyzing, improving, and moving forward. Part of this year's report isn't simply just reporting on data as legislated by the province. It's understanding the data and understanding how we can move forward. Over the last 3 years, you have all witnessed through the Human Rights Project an intentional analysis of the data that we present on a yearly basis. And we've titled the report Committed to Action over the last 3 years. It is simply not a yearly ledger-style report, in and out numbers. It's understanding how the impacts of this report are understood by the community and impact our members. A big thank you to our members across our organization for the duties, women and men, every day that lead to some of the data in this report. This is a cooperation between ourselves, the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, our academic partners, one of whom you will hear from momentarily, and our community. And it's an effort, again, to understand when we unfortunately, as a police service, have to revert to the implementation of physical force, how we can improve doing that, but understanding also the why that happens. And without further ado, I have Staff Superintendent Dirk Niles and Dr. Akwasi Owusu-Bempah to run through the report for us this year. So thank you, and Dirk, over to you.
Thank you, Deputy. Through you, Chair, good morning to the board, Chief, and CMG. Looking forward to being here again to present to you all on this year's annual Committed to Action Human Rights Project report. Like previous years, I'm pleased to be co-presenting with Professor Akwasi Owusu Bempah, who we refer to as Professor AOB for simplicity. And as you may or may not know, he's an associate professor with U of T, Department of Sociology, and criminologist, where his work focuses primarily on justice, policing, and the intersection of race and crime. He's also an affiliate scientist at CAMH and a senior fellow at Massey College. Like the deputy had just mentioned, this year marks the 5th year of the Human Rights Project, and we've reached a level of maturity in the project where we're going to share with you specifically how our work is impacting across the nation, but also how we're beginning to answer and get into some of the analytical work as it relates to disparity. A few highlights that we're going to cover in this year's report are going to be the provincial and national impact. I'll start there. The Association of Chiefs of Police for Ontario asked Peel Regional Police to partner with Toronto and the RCMP to co-lead a provincial strategy on race and identity-based data. We worked diligently throughout the end of 2023 and rolled the program out in 2024. And I'm pleased to announce that that is now shaping provincial strategy for several police services across the province. We were also called upon in 2024 to lead the Canadian Association Chiefs of Police national strategy in relation to developing training for all police services in Canada on Indigenous and race-based data collection. That was just recently finalized, and the framework has been released across the country, and it's having a large impact on how the country is doing things differently in this space. We also support multiple bodies in the area of training, leading practices for use of force and race-based data, and we're starting to get the conversation shifting from one that is not focused on reaction to policing issues, but how we can mitigate problems going forward and get ahead of serving communities better. You already heard earlier today about some of the hiring practices, and we've spoken at length about the intersection of the Human Rights Project and the weaving of the CSWB approach of the service. Deputy DePat's area has been instrumental in realizing multiple recommendations as they relate to our hiring practices. Like previous years, all hiring practices that you heard of reached the goal of 77% in the 2024 calendar year of representation from underrepresented groups. So we're on track to recompositioning the force, and the force is currently 60% underrepresented, up from when we started the project of about 42, 43%. In that hiring practice is the 30 by 30 initiative that was spoken about. There's always a challenge, which was highlighted by Mr. Boughton, in attaining women from our community, but their section of the organization is working diligently there. The youth engagement strategy was also created in 2024 and launched earlier at the end of 2024. And the primary focus there is how we can serve vulnerable sector, our most vulnerable sector, young people, and you heard from the Yippee initiative just now. Human rights in AI is at the forefront of concern in our community. We have 12 different recommendations in the Human Rights Project that speak about the human rights and intersection of AI. And as Mr. Carby stated on Tuesday, as a result of leading the Governance and Human Rights Committee, we facilitated the first of 3 different sessions where we're looking at the intersection of AI and human rights. Deputy Eduardi led those sessions, met with the professor and Ms. Claudia McCoy from the community, and the goal of these panel sessions is to enhance transparency and strengthen the governance around the adoption of AI technologies, ensuring that we have accountability and board oversight. And the last thing that we dove into in 2024 is a culmination of work that we've been doing for several years. If you recall, in 2020, the ministry required that all police services in Ontario were required to report on race and identity-based data and the intersection of use of force, particularly to monitor for overrepresentation or underrepresentations of different communities in this reporting. The chief, the board, our anti-racism advisory committee asked us to identify any overrepresentations that occurred. Unfortunately, but not different than any other service in Canada and North America, we had an overrepresentation of our Black community in use of force outcomes. Originally, that overrepresentation was approximately three times their regional population. So in response to this, we consulted with Iraq, data scientists, leading professors in this space, and our community, and we designed a unique program that would allow us to conduct analysis on what could be driving overrepresentation. This resulted in the disparity reduction and well-being plan that I'm going to walk you through shortly. And as part of that initiative, we collected 10,000 different data sets from everybody that was brought into custody in the 2024 year. And the purpose of doing this was to put them through a voluntary sampling of questions that would give us insights into what their lived experience was and advantages or disadvantages they've experienced in life in the area of housing, education, employment, mental health, and addictions. These factors are commonly referred to as the social determinants of justice. And like the social determinants of health, the presence of one or more of these risk factors, these advantages or disadvantages in life, results in the likelihood of someone experiencing a negative outcome. We then compared that data with the severity of crime that the person engaged in, and we got insights and circumstances that clearly are giving us a picture into what is driving the disparity in our region. And I'll turn it over to the professor to talk about disparity and the reliability of our model.
I'm red, which means I can go, right? Excellent, thank you. This tripped me up earlier this week. So thank you for that setup there, Dirk, and for the opportunity to be here again today. As Dirk has mentioned, we've been looking not only at the use of force, but doing what we can to try and understand the disparities that we see in the use of force. And again, when we're talking about disparities, we're talking about the overrepresentation of one group in an outcome versus, for example, their representation in the general population. So this does not equal discrimination necessarily, as I'll talk about in just a moment. There are a variety of factors, of course, as I've explained in this room before, that can contribute to disparities in a variety of outcomes, including use of force. So as you can see on the slide in front of us, here we've got what we might refer to as the social determinants of justice, and Dirk has just explained what some of those are. Again, these are the social factors that increase the likelihood that an individual will come into contact with the justice system. For example, stable housing, healthcare, education, employment. What we sought to understand, if we recognize that the disparities in policing outcomes, such as use of force, as we've discussed before, may be the result of internal drivers, individual decisions and institutional practices, for example, and external drivers, is continue to build out our understanding of these external drivers. And so we've undertaken analysis on the data that was collected through the PMA of the 10,000 or so people who were detained by the Peel Police over the last year. And what we're able to do in analyzing this data is identify the factors that contribute to an individual having force used on them. And so here again, we're looking specifically at the social factors as reported by the individuals themselves, and then an assessment of the nature of the crime that they've committed and its severity. This is important because this helps us, kind of move the conversation away from thinking about policing in isolation to something that happens within a broader system, considering the role of, for example, poverty, housing, education, importantly addiction, and mental health in producing these outcomes. And what we find, despite the rather large racial disparities in police use of force, is that irrespective of race, the social determinants, as you can see highlighted here, in combination with the severity of crime, are the key factors that increase the likelihood that an individual has force used on them.
And I'll now walk you through the findings. People experiencing mental health issues were 53% more likely to experience use of force. People who had prior arrests or early contact with police were 54% more likely to experience use of force. People involved in weapons offense and violence calls were 86% more likely to experience use of force. Young people under the age of 30 were 88% more likely to experience use of force. However, the number one risk was the nature and severity of crime that a person engaged in, and that single factor alone elevated the likelihood of force by 455%. But we also identified a series of protective factors that tie into the community safety and well-being strategy that I'll let the professor comment on.
Yeah, so as we could see from the analysis, individuals who were steadily employed, stably housed, and who had higher levels of education, again, those positive social outcomes, had a reduced likelihood that force would be used against them. And we can control for these in our models, increase the instability of housing, for example, and see what the impact would be on use of force, and the result is it would be increased. So again, from my perspective, this is very significant, not only because this data is rather novel, and this is something that is unique to the service in terms of having done this, but again, it helps us understand in a much clearer way, and there's still a lot of work yet to be done here, but in a much clearer way, what these key drivers are external to the service that are contributing to the use of force. And again, recognizing, because oftentimes when we talk about racial disparities, and especially in the context of the justice system, there's a lot of emphasis focused on, the individual and the institutional discrimination. And here, while we recognize the salience of those factors and are committed to understanding and ameliorating them, we also need to look at these social vulnerabilities and social factors.
So, from an action standpoint, what we're asking the board and what we have right now is an opportunity for the service and the region to take some leadership actions in addressing the disparity in a multitude of ways. The disparity analysis that we've just gone through allows us to see exactly what's driving these risks and disadvantages. And it intersects directly with the mental health and addictions, youth violence prevention, systemic disadvantage that's happening with the community safety and well-being plan for the service. And so we're proposing the following collaborative actions. First, we would like to have an opportunity to conduct multi-sector consultations where we're able to bring justice, youth, and all of the different stakeholders together to examine their data to look at some root causes and how that contributes. Secondly, we're asking for advocacy at a regional level to begin examining disparity in crime under the region's CSWB plan. This would then lead invariably to creating a disparity table in co-development with system responses to address disparity. We will then expand our analysis in 2026 and 2027 to look at charge and arrest data and how that's playing over. And then lastly, through the Youth Engagement Strategy and the Peel Police Foundation, level resources and existing programs to intervene in crime. I'll now move into factors that are importing this year's reporting. In past years, the professor and I have spoken about how you can expect an increase or a decrease in fluctuations of use of force trends. One of the things that we always keep in mind is that the primary goal of the Human Rights Project is to enable our officers, regardless of what's happening, whether or not they're affected by any sort of stimuli or calls for service, to impart and use the skills that they have as it relates to the Human Rights Project to de-escalate situations and resolve them safely and humanely. In 2024, we noted a 111% increase in use of force reports when compared to 2023. But as we just learned through going through the disparity analysis, we now know that the #1 driver of use of force is the severity of offense, particularly where weapons or violence are involved. So in 2024, we noted the following increases that's impacting our use of force reports this year. A 72% increase in shootings in 2024, 1,807 crimes against person increase since 2023, 142% increase in violent crimes as the reason for use of force reports, 197% increase in disturbances that involves violent offenses, 45% increase in stolen vehicles that also includes carjackings, and a 93% increase in weapons-based calls. But what is interesting to note is despite these increases, we also registered our lowest rate of injury to members in the community who received or were involved in use of force encounters, where we had a 79% drop in the rate of injury to members of the community and a 90% drop to injuries experienced by our officers. And I think you had some comments on that, Kwasi?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of top up what you've said there. 111% increase year over year, of course, is substantial. And as I've said here before, the important thing for us to keep in mind is that there will be year over year fluctuations. And importantly, we need to have a look at trends and assess the extent to which this is symptomatic of a trend. And if it is, what's underlying those trends. And so again, keeping our eye on this top line figure of 111% increase, while again noting in terms of positive outcomes, the decrease in injuries both to members of the community and to members of the service. Again, pointing to the likelihood that the work that's being undertaken, especially around human rights and the shifting approach to policing, is having a positive impact.
Like previous years, we had approximately 276,000 events, and as a refresher, an event is any call for service, traffic stop, or citizen-generated call in which the police have contact with the community. In total, we had 1.3 million calls come into our communications center, that resulted in that event number. And about 3/4 of all use of force, like similar years, were spontaneous and the result of our frontline people responding to incidents. As noted, because of the increase in the severity of crime, we had a 33% increase in all types of force that were used, but we also marked an 81% decrease in K9 being used in use of force. This is a significant drop as we were monitoring a trend that took place in 2021 and 2022 that was concerning. We had a 100% decrease in discharging of a firearm. This is our second year in a row that we did not discharge a firearm. And we had a 39% decrease in discharging of a taser. And on this slide, as every year, we always monitor and register what the disparity is. At our height, the representation of our Black community in use of force in 2022 was 34%. This year, that number has dropped by 6% to 28%. And I'll let the professor comment.
And again, important to think about this reduction in the context of the overall use of force. And so, of course, given our concerns around overrepresentation and desire to understand them, the reduction is a positive thing. But, having made comments previously when the disparities had stayed consistent and the overall numbers reduced, that was positive. Need to, just bear this in mind. And so, again, 6% reduction is a positive thing. We'd like to see a reduction in the disparity as well as the overall use of force.
Thanks, Professor. And like previous years, we measure the intersection of mental health and use of force. It's of great concern to the board, the community, and the service. And we've been repeatedly asked to reduce that number as significantly as possible by enhancing our community safety and well-being training and awareness for our officers on mental health and intersecting the human rights-focused training on trauma-informed approach and giving understanding to officers on how to mitigate use of force scenarios. So in 2024, we measured 7,456 calls for people in crisis. This resulted in 182 use of force incidents. And of that, only 10 people experienced minor injuries, which is 0.13%. We also had a 64% drop in the decrease of numbers of people in crisis who experienced injury from use of force. And for the second year in a row, we marked a 92% decrease of injury to Black people in crisis and a 40% decrease in injury to South Asian people in crisis. Professor?
Yeah, and again, positive indicators here, given concerns around police use of force and mental health. So these are, from my perspective, positive figures, and those drops for both the South Asian community and for Black persons, very positive.
We also measure de-escalation, and like previous years, we've been above 95% now in de-escalation efforts for the third year in a row. In 2024, our officers applied and utilized de-escalation in 96% of all incidents. And for the third year in a row, we've measured how many officers are involved in a use of force situation, de-escalation, how many applications of force, and whether or not there was any variance in treatment difference by racial groups. And for the third year in a row, we found that there is no differential. We're applying it evenly across all different racial groups of our community. We had 33,000 people in custody, and again, we noted a statistically insignificant number of strip searches. It was only 31, which were all adults. So what are we going to be doing next with the project going forward? Last year when we were here, we spoke about the incredible work that Iraq was doing in creating subcommittees. We've parsed out the entire set of the recommendations. They're to about 40 or 50 per each group, and those groups are working diligently, and each have received packages to continue with the work, but most importantly, verify what the service has implemented through open transparency. Iraq is now involved in coming into the service, viewing and participating in our training, reviewing policy, multi-year action planning with us, organizational change and accountability mechanisms, and through the community advisory panel, which was instrumental in devising the disparity reduction model that we spoke about today, participating in our data analysis. So just in closing, before I turn it over to you, Chief, for any final comment and then open the floor to questions, I just want to acknowledge that great work, like Deputy O'Doherty did, from our Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, as well as our membership. I mean, the disparity model itself required that every officer in the service had to participate in asking those questions when they brought somebody in custody into the service, which is a testament to CPOC, and Deputy Chief Andrews' work at all levels, and it's really been a service-wide initiative that's come to its maturation in its 5th year. And I'll turn it to you, Chief.
Thank you, Professor and Staff Superintendent Niles. I think my comments to the board are, as you know, every police agency in Ontario will be in some form or another reporting their use of force data. And I think we've always taken the position that we want to understand why disparities exist and what is within our ability to control. And the service has undertaken work over the last several years to do and step into the space of what we believe might allow our people to be more effective in these scenarios and control what we can. The emphasis on this report, which the board should be aware, is the concurrent emphasis on what else can we do from understanding of the data that can contribute to systems coordination enhancements that, you know, to Dirk's point, is what can we do at the region level, what can we do with the other stakeholders in this space, and continuing to understand the drivers of disparity and the other social determinants of justice is something that I can say is not being done, I don't know, anywhere, to be fair. And, you know, we do hope, I think Dirk did highlight our efforts to share what's happening here at Peel with other agencies nationally. We do hope that these are elements that, you know, we can still see changes in systems right across the board. So thank you for helping to inform that, Professor. We know that there's a lot more work to do, and there's the ability for us to learn more and be effective alongside health, mental health, education, other systems is very critical, and it's the key element to what we believe here in community safety well-being. So thank you, sir.
Dirk, we're good to go to questions or anything further at your end to close?
Please, Chair, through you. Questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Boughton, you reached out. You have some questions. Go ahead. And then Mr. Carby. Go ahead.
Thank you, Professor and Staff Superintendent. And I wonder if, Chair, you could cut me a little slack here because I have a couple quick questions that we could do. So I haven't shared this information with the board, but about 3 or 4 months ago, I asked the staff superintendent now so he would get together with me to talk about the use of force report prior to it being generated. So I think we spent 3 or 4 hours one afternoon, just the two of us. It was nice and quiet so that we could go through it, and I expressed some of my concerns. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me and for me to listen to you as well. One of the things that we talked about, and I'm not blindsiding Dirk on this at all because we emailed last week. So, Chair, the question I'm going to ask, I'm not blindsided him. And we talked about if there was a bad person and there was an arrest warrant, and we don't take them down in the house anymore, right? We're not going to go into a house because there could be family and others that we don't want to injure. So we wait outside. We have cars in place, and we have in the case that Dirk and I talked about, 6 officers, and the bad person comes out, and these 6 officers are engaged. They'll draw a handgun. They'll have the taser out. There's still some resistance, so there's a physical use of force. And so I asked Staff Superintendent, I said, so how many reports of use of force would there be with 6 officers taking down 1 bad guy? And I'll let you answer before I carry on.
Sure, thanks. And through you, Chair. So if I have it right, Mr. Boughton, we have 1 individual who's arrested by 6 officers, and all of the officers, because he's a high-risk individual, are required to use the force, firearm, taser, and then empty hand, which is a common scenario, right? As we deal with organized crime, carjacking scenarios, gunmen, a lot of the work happening under Deputy Milinovich's pillar, these things happen. That 1 use of force incident would result in 6 use of force reports, and if all members of that team drew their firearm, drew their taser, or put their hands on the individual, applied the handcuffs, were involved in that arrest, it would be 18 applications of force. So we did do some analysis based on what you were pointing out, is that that directly contributes to the higher number as we get into more complex situations with organized crime groups, more severe crimes and violence. So I believe it's page 10 of the report. We included the applications of force, and we just took a snapshot of 6 encounters that resulted in over 100 applications of force, of which no one was injured. And I think that's the important thing, is though there's more complex response, because our officers are applying that human rights approach to things and de-escalating, we aren't having any sorts of injuries that are coming, or extremely low injuries in that. But that's the answer.
Thank you, Chair, and through you, Chair. The reason that I ask is because if you look at the numbers, particularly with the Black community, it's always disproportionate. It has been since I've been on this board, and I think it's about 3 times. Now we're at 9.87% or something. Is that the number of the Black community? And
yes,
okay,
sure.
so let's call it 10%. And then if you look at the use of force and it's 31%, my math tells me it's disproportionate by 300%. If you look at the other communities, there's a lot of consistency in the South Asian community, the white community, et cetera. And it's disproportionate with the Black community, fair to say.
That is correct, yes.
If we have a gang member who just happens to be Black and do this, what happens, I think, and through you, Chair, and for the rest of the board, it skews the numbers. It makes us PRP maybe look not so good on it. And when I look at the report, which is excellent, one of the things that jumps for me on the report, and you use and I think, Professor, I'll ask this of you. It says unstable home life, and what I would ask on that, if you look at the U.S., and I hate to compare us to the U.S., but if you look at the U.S., the Black population in federal prisons in the United States is 38% is Black, yet they represent only 12% of the overall population. Again, it's a 300 factor. It's a 3 times factor. In the detailed analysis in the U.S., the biggest factor that comes out of the U.S. for criminals to get into activity and then continue on in that criminal path is a lack of a positive male influence in their life. That's what comes out of it in the U.S. all the time. Would it be fair to say that would be consistent in Canada, where there is not a strong positive male figure, and many of these violent offenders, repeat offenders, that create these numbers that are disproportionate in the Black community?
I'll let the professor comment on the literature in the States, but what I can tell you is that in the methodology that we used here, we did not measure for that specifically. We focused more on vulnerabilities, regardless of whatever racial group there was, sir, that put a group or put an individual at risk. What I would agree with you is that more of our Black population is facing challenges as it relates to mental health, employment, and finishing education, which are some systemic issues, and I'll let the professor top that up.
Yeah, so I think, first and foremost, I just want to clarify that the reason that Black people are 3 times as overrepresented in the American prison system as their representation in the general population is not simply because of a lack of Black fathers or Black male role models in the house. There are a multitude of factors that may play a role, but that is not the cause of the overrepresentation of Black people in American prisons. So I think we got to get that very clear. Do we see some parallels in the Canadian context in terms of family structure and Black families? Absolutely, we do. And could that be playing a role here as well? Yes, it could. But these other factors that we look at are demonstrated to be significant here. And that's what we need to look at. So should we be incorporating this perhaps into the work that we're doing? Yes, we probably should, but it's not the be all and end all, and not the key driver of these disparities.
Okay, I might add that in the information that I read, it was very consistent, by the way, with the Hispanic and the white population that were in the prison system, that if it was another group other than the Black community, that it was very consistent that if they didn't have a positive male influence in their life, that these young Black men, Hispanic or white, could end up in the system. The other question I'd like to ask, and this is to you, Staff Superintendent, is of these use of forces, how do we track how many of them were out on bail, are repeat offenders? Because we're all looking at the justice system and the revolving door of bail. Are you tracking that? Will you in the future, so we can see? This is the message we got to get to Ottawa and to Queen's Park, that if these numbers that we don't like are because of a revolving door in the justice system, I think the governments need to understand that so they can help us do our job.
Thanks, and through you, Chair. What we tracked in the 2024 data was prior arrests or prior contacts. We can include a collection strategy that'll include whether or not they're on bail at the time of use of force. That's very easy to include, and we can start that for January 1st, 2026, so we get a full calendar year of data. Because we're still collecting now through 2025, so we need to have a complete set so we can do it for comparative analysis.
Yes, and again, through you, if it's useful for us, recognizing that our job is governance, it's not management. I mean, you're managing it, but if it's useful that this board says, hey, these are some statistics that we want to look at in order that we can help you do your job and understand it better, and then that information can be properly presented to provincial and federal governments so that they can help us to take the bad people, take them off the street and keep them off the street in order that we can get these statistics down. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Carby.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you. I think I can now affectionately call you Prof. AOB and Superintendent Niles for the very thoughtful and detailed presentation of our use of force data, not just presenting what the data says, but giving perspective around what the data means. This is my third year of hearing the use of force data presentation. And in the very first time, you'll remember this, I asked specifically about getting a deeper understanding of what's causing the disparity. And I remember 3 years ago, you made me the promise that you would go into a deeper understanding of it. So I am very happy you have delivered on your promise so that we now have an academic and position that can tell us how to understand the disparity. And I'm glad this slide is still on the screen, because there are all kinds of narratives out there about what causes the disparity. But we now have data to support whatever anecdotal, things that we may believe is causing it. And so this has led, I think, over the work that we do through the Human Rights Project, the work we do with ARAC, your work, Professor, with the board in reviewing all of our policies and procedures to make sure they're done through a human rights lens. I think there's so much work that you have done with us as a board and as a service that's informing the way policing is changing in Peel. And I dare say we're leading this conversation around changing in policing that many other services, as I have moved in community and met many other individuals from different boards and services, are really paying attention to the way we are addressing this issue. So I believe we are the benchmark by which other services could look at how to address this. But what I wouldn't want us to miss is all of this work that has been done over time. How do we make sure that one, this is captured in a way that it becomes maybe some kind of academic paper or something that other services can use to help influence how they do policing, and also ensure that this becomes intellectual property that we hold on to, something that has really been done, invested in by the board and the service for posterity. And that's a question. And then the second comment I want to make is, Chair, I would love the opportunity on behalf of the Human Rights, the Governance and Human Rights Committee, to move the motion to accept this report, not just for accepting what it says, but with the recommendations that are attached, because those recommendations include things that affect the region. And ask of the region to engage. And so I believe that the board should lean into taking these recommendations, and by adopting the report, also support those recommendations. So at the appropriate time, I'd like to be the one to take the motion on that. But Professor, maybe you could comment around how we make sure that this information and data is kept for posterity.
Yeah, so thank you for the questions and comments there. I think, from an academic perspective, absolutely, there's a lot of value academically in utilizing and working with this data further and publishing it. And in so doing, telling part of the story too, because the story is important. And similarly, I would encourage the service to be documenting this, creating reports on the process that could be utilized for similar purposes. So I'm all in support of that, and would very much appreciate the opportunity to publish with this information and data, or these information and data.
Close my comments then with just a thank you for Professor. It's been the journey with us with this Human Rights Project. You have been on this journey with us for 5 years. And so we have learned a lot from you, and I want to thank you for leaning into this space. I remember in the earlier days, you didn't come on board simply as a champion of policing. You came on board as holding our, police services, our feet to the fire, and demanding or requesting change, but didn't do it from the outside. You decided to come to the table and to help lead us in an academic understanding of what needs to be done within policing. And so we're truly grateful for the work you have done with us for the past 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just before I come to you for your motion, Mr. Carby, just a couple of questions at my thought. The two that I have are this. One, I'm going to call awareness. So to the professor, I'm going to use myself as an example. I don't want to pick on policing necessarily. So I was lucky enough to come into this role, so I'm the chair and CEO of this organization. We'd have meetings with our executive leadership team. First year, you want to sit down, hope you're doing well, so I would have one-to-ones, and I was meeting with my commissioners individually. So what am I doing well, do you think? And they were very laudatory. And I said, what could I do better? And in truth, they didn't have a very long list. And I said, well, you must have something. And someone said, Chair, you have a habit. And I said, what's that? And they said, sometimes when you address the women on the executive team, you'll stop and you'll go, dear. And I can understand. And I go, there's two reasons for that. I go, the second reason is I'm an old white guy who uses it as a term of endearment, though I know it's and then she goes, and the first reason is you forget our names. And I said, yeah. So that's why I would stop. My point of that is this. When they brought it to my attention, I corrected it immediately. My question to you is, can I accept that most humans, I'm not trying to take credit here, but most people didn't know that the average time I pulled somebody over, they were black. I thought I was oblivious. Subconscious bias. I know there's subconscious bias, but my question to you is, are we good at when it's brought to your attention and we show you the data, is the team genuinely saying, well, I was unaware of that, I'm going to course correct? What are your thoughts on that, Professor?
I think that differs greatly across individuals, how entrenched their belief systems are, how deeply embedded their implicit biases are, and how willing they are to recognize what it is that they've been confronted with. So I would say the people who are open-minded and willing to change, yes, probably, but those who are stuck in their ways or may not see what it is that is being brought to them as a problem, no. So, we talk about diversity a lot. We are a diverse peoples, and so I can't say yes or no with any kind of certainty there, other than to say that it differs across people.
Okay, I take a lot from your answer. I appreciate that. Here's my second question to both of you. I'm mentioning my brother's got his doctoral degree in industrial psychology, so he looks at the workplace, and he and I have a lot of conversations. I have a question about AI and some of what I've learned from him, but also recently in the media. You know, I absorb a lot of media, so after a while it just becomes background noise. So every now and again I hear or read something that I go, oh, that's kind of big. The really big one this last 2 weeks was they estimate that the investment in AI over the next 3 to 5 years will be $3.5 to $4 trillion. And you're in that world. I used to come from the investment world. Do you know what $3 or $4 trillion is? And in discussions with my brother and understanding that we're going to have AI, the revolution is coming, et cetera, my fear, and this is my question, is there's no question it's coming. We've gotten some, my phrase, technology dividends from AI. But my fear, my dad made bricks for 40 years with his hands. Postal workers thought they might have worked for 40 years delivering the mail. That's not going to happen anymore. The rate of change is so quick. So unless, and this is my question and my fear, with the prevalence of AI, if you are not educated and understand that world, and or you don't understand that world, but you're an old white guy with capital and can buy into that world, oh my God, the other 98% of you are going to get left behind. Ozzy, I see you nodding. You understand the point? And that's why my brother instills in my kid, you better get a university education. I don't care what it is, because otherwise you will be competing against the other 98% that the game has changed. They can't say, well, I'll make bricks or I'll deliver mail. No, those jobs are, you understand what I'm trying to say. As it relates to us in general and to policing specifically, am I concerned, are we going to put more people who are disadvantaged because they don't have the opportunity or whatever the case might be, even further behind? Professor, your thoughts?
This is a very big question, and I listen to a lot of the conversations as well about the rise of AI and its impact on, for example, the jobs in the workforce. So the extent to which AI is likely to entrench inequality, I think that's a fear of a lot of people. You're either going to be of the AI class and you're not, and this is why we hear conversations about, you know, are we going to need a universal basic income? You know, I think that it's a well-founded fear, undoubtedly, but again, the promise of many technologies have been overstated, and different industrial revolutions have, of course, revolutionized industries, but have not put necessarily everyone out of work. And so I do hold some promise, but it is, of course, a concern that many hold.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Carby, I'm coming back to you for your formal motion, please.
So, Chair, I so move that the board accepts the report of our use of force for this year, and that the recommendations attached are followed through with the region of Peel.
Be referred to the region of Peel as the normal, absolutely.
Thank you,
Len,
sir.
you're seconding that motion. Any other further debate or discussion? That is carried. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your presentation. Okay, moving on. Under other new business, item 9, Halton Regional Police Service request to participate in booking image database. Report dated August 13, 2025 from Deputy Chief Milinovich, Investigative Emergency Command, providing the board with a request to onboard Halton Regional Police Service as a contributing agency to be sharing booking images databases with. To the Deputy Milinovich, if you want to introduce, make a comment, go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair, very quickly, I think you've summed it up nicely. It's a request from Halton Police Service Board on behalf of the police service, congruent with the MOU that we share with York, for them to join our booking image database. That database currently exists with approximately 1.3 million images that were collected as part of the Identification of Criminals Act, and adding them to that would allow us to not only have access to their booking images, but they would have access to ours as well. And if there's any...
I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt you. We just lost quorum. Oh, we just got quorum back. Carry on.
Excellent. And that's my summary and introduction. Welcome back.
Right on time. Perfect. With that, the report is before. Any questions from members of committee? Seeing none, moved by Councillor Mahoney, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor? That is carried. And the additional one, we have item 10 that was, we've added on our additional agenda. It is a report with relates to the 2025 operating capital and reserve financial report. It's our second triannual report presented by Laura Jackson, Chief Administrative Officer. Lauren, did you want to speak to your report?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to just give the Coles Note summary, but of course, welcome questions or comments from the board. For our triannual, our second triannual of the year, we're about 6 months, just over that through the year. The takeaway here is that we're forecasting to come in on budget. We continue to monitor variable spend items that we look at closely every year, including benefits utilization. This report highlights that at this time, we're forecasting a potential surplus in that area of about $3 million. Of note, though, of course, we're forecasting coming in on budget. That surplus is being offset by other pressures or deficits in the wage category, wages, looking at leave banks, things of that nature.
Any comments, questions? If not, the report is moved by Mr. Khan, seconded by Mr. Carby. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. That takes us to the end of business, so I'm going to ask for formal motion of adjournment from Mr. Boughton, seconded by Mr. Carby. All those in favor? That is carried. And we will, as soon as everybody can gently make their way, go right in camera for our one report. So that concludes the meeting. We will now move into camera as moved by Mr. Carby, seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor. And anybody needs a quick break, go ahead. We'll start in 5 minutes. Thank you.